What really happened behind the scenes when the cameras stopped rolling? And why did a short black and white clip spark a wave of speculation far beyond simple entertainment? Was this just a playful concept that failed to look intimidating? Or could it be a hidden signal of something much deeper within the dynamics of BTS? And even more surprisingly, could a simple congratulatory message from the Wooga squad to Kim Taehyung have quietly triggered something unspoken within Jeon JUNGKOOK? It all began with a video that seemed simple on the surface, but carried layers that were impossible to ignore. The clip, which quickly spread across social media platforms, featured three globally recognized figures: Kim Taehyung, Park Jimin, and Jeon JUNGKOOK. Wrapped in a cinematic black and white concept, they attempted to step into characters far removed from their usual image, a world filled with gangster aesthetics, intimidation, and cold authority often seen in classic noir films. But something felt off. Instead of delivering tension or fear, the three appeared to struggle to hold back laughter. The black suits, meant to emphasize elegance and danger, became a backdrop for barely contained smiles. The leather coats that should have enhanced their presence instead looked like part of a parody. Even the fake beards and mustaches, intended to strengthen their characters, added an unavoidable sense of absurdity. And in the middle of it all, one name stood out the most. Park Jimin. His walk, which should have been firm and dominant, was perceived as too light, almost playful. Some fans jokingly commented that he looked too cute to be a gangster, while others teased that he seemed more like he was heading to a fashion runway than a dangerous confrontation. What started as lighthearted reactions quickly evolved into a broader discussion. Was this concept intentionally ironic, or did something not go as planned? Yet the most surprising part was not their struggle to appear intimidating. The public's attention soon shifted to the member who seemed the quietest in the clip, Kim Taehyung. His gaze, even in just a few seconds, felt different. Unlike the others, he appeared more immersed in the role, as if he was genuinely trying to understand the character he was portraying. And this is where speculation began to grow. Within hours of the clip going viral, rumors spread that several top producers had shown significant interest in Taehyung's performance. It wasn't just about his striking visuals, but something harder to define, an aura that remained powerful even when the overall concept felt unserious. Could this be the beginning of bigger acting opportunities? Or was it simply an overreaction from a public eager to draw conclusions? Amid this rising attention, a seemingly small detail made the situation even more intriguing: a congratulatory message from the Wooga squad. This close-knit group of friends, known for their strong bond with Taehyung, openly expressed their support. For some, it was nothing more than genuine friendship. But for others, it raised sharper questions. Why did the message feel so perfectly timed? And at the same moment, why was there no public reaction of a similar nature from Jungkook? Was Jungkook's silence merely a coincidence? Or could it represent an emotion he chose not to reveal publicly? Speculation about jealousy began to surface. Some interpreted that the intense attention directed at Taehyung, combined with vocal external support, created an unusual imbalance. In a group that has been together for years, even subtle shifts like this can feel much larger than they appear. But is it fair to draw such conclusions? Industry observers remind us that dynamics like these are natural within a globally successful group like BTS. Each member has their moment, and public attention often moves in waves, unpredictable and ever-changing. However, they also acknowledge that moments like this can create real emotional pressure, especially when every expression and gesture is analyzed by millions. What makes this situation even more complex is how fans themselves contribute to the narrative. Comments that began as jokes about Jimin's walk gradually turned into deeper discussions about roles, attention, and even relationships between members. Is this simply overanalysis, or a reflection of something genuinely felt beneath the surface? On the other hand, many see this as further proof of Taehyung's power as a performer. Even within a concept that didn't fully succeed, he managed to captivate attention in a way that's difficult to explain. It's not just about visuals or technique. It's about presence, that intangible quality that separates a good artist from one who is truly unforgettable. Still, a larger question lingers. Is all of this just coincidence amplified by social media, or are we witnessing the early signs of a more significant shift in BTS's journey? Amid all the speculation, one thing remains certain. That short clip achieved something rare. It transformed a lighthearted moment into a global conversation filled with emotion, curiosity, and unanswered questions. Perhaps, in the end, it's not about who looked the most convincing in a gangster concept, nor is it about who received the most congratulations. It's about how small details, a glance, a step, even silence, can shape a narrative far greater than anyone expected. And as the conversation continued to spiral across global fan communities, something even more subtle began to surface. Something that could not be captured in screenshots or short clips, yet was deeply felt by those who had followed BTS for years. It was not just about a performance, nor about who stood out visually in a stylized concept. It was about shifts, small, almost invisible shifts, in energy, attention, and perhaps even emotion, because when millions of eyes are watching, nothing ever feels truly accidental. The more the clip was replayed, slowed down, and analyzed frame by frame, the more fans began to notice details that hadn't been obvious at first glance. Taehyung's stillness. The way his expression held longer than expected, the almost deliberate calm in his posture compared to the others' barely suppressed laughter. Was it simply a difference in acting approach, or was he consciously separating himself from the playful chaos around him? And if so, why? At the same time, Jeon JUNGKOOK's presence in the video began to attract a different kind of attention. Not because he did anything particularly striking, but because of what some perceived as restraint. His laughter, though visible, seemed more controlled. His movements, while playful, carried a slight hesitation, as if he was aware of something beyond the moment itself. This is where speculation took a sharper turn. Could it be that Jungkook was already aware of the growing spotlight on Taehyung? That even before the clip went viral, there was an understanding, perhaps unspoken, that this moment would not belong equally to all three? Or was this simply the narrative fans created after the fact, projecting meaning onto expressions that were never meant to carry such weight? Not from the general public, but from those closest to the members. When the Wooga squad publicly expressed their pride and admiration for Taehyung, it was seen by many as a heartwarming gesture. Names like Park Seo-joon and Choi Woo-shik, known for their close friendship with Taehyung, have never hesitated to show support. Their bond has long been celebrated as one of the most genuine friendships in the industry. Because this wasn't just any moment. This was a moment when attention was already heavily leaning toward Taehyung. A moment when conversations were already forming around his performance, his aura, his potential beyond music. So when the congratulatory messages appeared, they didn't exist in isolation. They amplified what was already happening, and amplification, in a space as sensitive as global fandom culture, can easily be misinterpreted. Questions began to echo louder. Why now? Why so publicly? And again, the same lingering observation resurfaced. Where was Jungkook in all of this? Of course, silence does not equal absence. Those who understand the dynamics within BTS know that not everything is meant to be displayed publicly. Their bond has been built over years of shared struggles, triumphs, and moments far more intense than a single viral clip. Yet, in the absence of visible reactions, imagination often fills the gaps. Some fans began revisiting past moments between Jungkook and Taehyung, interviews, behind-the-scenes clips, subtle exchanges that once seemed ordinary. Suddenly, everything felt like a clue. A glance held too long. A joke that didn't land the same way. A pause that now seemed heavier than before. But is it fair to reconstruct an entire narrative based on fragments? There is a thin line between observation and projection, and in this case, that line became increasingly blurred. Meanwhile, industry insiders quietly added fuel to the fire. Discussions about Taehyung's potential in acting were not new, but this time, they carried a different tone. It wasn't just speculation, it was interest. Real, tangible interest from producers who reportedly saw something in that short clip that others might have overlooked. An ability to command attention without trying. An ability to exist within a frame in a way that feels intentional. And perhaps that is what made this moment so unsettling. Not because of conflict, but because of contrast. While the concept itself leaned toward humor, Taehyung's presence seemed to belong to a different narrative entirely. It was as if two tones existed simultaneously within the same clip, and somehow, he managed to anchor one while the others floated within the other. This contrast, whether intentional or not, became the center of discussion, and inevitably, it led back to the same question: what does this mean for the group moving forward? In a group as globally influential as BTS, individuality is both a strength and a delicate balance. Each member brings something unique, something irreplaceable. But when one member's moment begins to expand beyond the group's shared spotlight, it can create a shift. Not necessarily a negative one, but a shift nonetheless. And as the silence continued to stretch, almost imperceptibly at first, it began to take on a shape of its own, evolving into something that no longer felt empty, but instead loaded. Because in a world where every gesture is magnified, silence is never just silence. It becomes a canvas, and on that canvas, millions begin to paint their own interpretations. The clip, which once lived as a fleeting moment of lighthearted experimentation, had now transformed into something far more complex. It was no longer about costumes, nor about